Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello everybody, welcome to Mains Test Series program wherein we shall be discussing a question from the full-length test GS paper 3 Indian economy. In this particular session, we shall be taking up a question from the Indian agriculture. The question here is, do you think the government's long pending agriculture marketing reforms introduced as part of Atma Nirbhar Bharat Package is a 1991 movement for the Indian agriculture? Give arguments in support of your answer. This question has been asked for 15 marks and you are required to write the answer in 250 words. Now, before we get into the discussion of this particular question, let me first highlight as to why this question has been asked in the first place. See, presently the APMC regime in case of India, it is considered to be highly restrictive, fragmented, pro-traders and anti-farmers. It is considered to be quite restrictive because presently there are restrictions on the farmers as to whom and where they can sell their agricultural produce. The farmers have to compulsorily sell the agricultural produce only within the APMCs, and that to be only to the traders. The farmers do not have the freedom to sell the agricultural produce directly to an exporter, processor or an end consumer. The APMC regime is considered to be quite fragmented because right now in case of India, we have almost around 22,000 APMCs across India, and these APMCs as such are not linked to each other. So we do not have an integrated domestic market for the agricultural commodities. Moreover, when the farmers sell the agricultural produce in the APMCs, these agricultural commodities pass through multiple middlemen and intermediaries by the time they reach the end consumers. So the amount of price realization for the farmers is quite lower and it tends to benefit mainly the traders. So this APMC regime is considered to be one of the biggest challenges to the doubling of farmers' income. It is hindering the long-term investment in the Indian agriculture, and it is also leading to a kind of debt trap for the Indian farmers. Hence, in order to address these problems with respect to agriculture marketing, the government of India has introduced mainly 3 farm acts. The first farm act is to promote barrier-free interstate and intrastate trading of the agricultural commodities. The second farm act is to provide for a legal framework for the contract farming. The third act is about amendments to the Essential Commodities Act in order to ensure that the agricultural commodities are outside the purview of the Essential Commodities Act 1955. Now, when you see the industries in case of India, there are no restrictions on the industries as to where and to whom they can sell their industrial goods. The industries can sell their goods anywhere within India. They can export their goods as well. However, so far, we are not given this kind of freedom to our farmers. That is why these 3 farm acts which have been passed by the Indian Parliament, they are considered to be a kind of 1991 movement. That is, we are liberalizing the marketing of the agricultural commodities. However, at the same time, we do know that these 3 farm acts have been opposed by multiple stakeholders. Right now, we are witnessing the farmers' protest. So the farmers are basically protesting against these farm acts because they believe that this probably in the long run could lead to dismantling of the MSP regime. They also believe that this could lead to their exploitation in the hands of the multinational companies. On the other hand, the states are apprehensive that this could lead to their loss of the revenue. The states have also argued that the center has encroached upon the legislative powers of the states by making a law on a subject related to the agriculture. So there are protests or rather concerns raised by multiple stakeholders as far as these farm acts are concerned. So the question here is, to what extent do you think these 3 farm acts will be able to liberalize the agriculture marketing and improve the income levels of the farmers? So if you have to decode this particular question, obviously the central theme or the central premise of this question is with respect to the three farm acts. So, if you have to write the answer to this question, first and foremost, you should know as to how these farm acts have been able to liberalize the agricultural marketing. What do you think would be the benefits associated with these farm acts? What challenges can arise once we start implementing these farm acts? And what should be done in order to address these challenges? So basically, in your answer, you are basically highlighting that the Farm Acts introduced by the government of India is indeed a 1991 movement for the Indian agriculture. Indeed, it is going to liberalize the agricultural marketing. But at the same time, there are certain concerns and challenges. So unless you address these concerns or challenges, these three Farm Acts cannot become a game changer as far as the Indian agriculture is concerned. So this is what you'll be required to write in the answer to this particular question. So keeping this thing in mind, let us understand as to what should be the suggested answer structure to this question. In the introduction here, you could basically highlight that presently the APMC regime is fragmented, restrictive and pro-trader. Hence, in order to address these problems and liberalize the agricultural marketing, the Parliament has come out with the three Farm Acts. So you are basically highlighted here that these three Farm Acts are a kind of 1991 movement for the Indian agriculture. In the body of the answer, you are required to carry out a critical analysis of the three Farm Acts. That is, you'll have to break down these three Farm Acts in terms of their benefits and their challenges. See, here the answer has to be written in 250 words. So you cannot afford to write about the provisions of all of these three acts, because if you keep on writing about the provisions, then you'll not be able to do justice to the answer. So do not write about the provisions, rather directly write about the benefits and the challenges. Take for instance, the first Farm Act, that is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act. As far as benefits is concerned, here you can write that it seeks to give freedom to the farmers to sell their agricultural produce anywhere and whomsoever they would want to. That is, they can sell their agricultural produce anywhere within India to an exporter, processor or an end consumer. Moreover, once they are able to sell the agricultural produce outside the APMCs, no fees would be imposed. So this in a way would streamline the agricultural supply chain. It will reduce the post-harvest losses. It will lead to higher income for the farmers. So there are multiple benefits. At the same time, you have to highlight certain challenges as well. See, as far as challenges are concerned, under this particular act, the farmer is required to sell his agriculture produce in a trade area. Now, the trade area here could be a farm gate, factory premise, godown, or a cold chain infrastructure. But the problem that arises here is, here it is basically the private entities that will be procuring the agriculture produce from the farmers. So it can so happen that these private sector entities can pay a price which is much below the minimum support price. This would in turn lead to the exploitation of the farmers. This is the first challenge. Secondly, if you have to understand as to whether this particular freedom that we are given to the farmers, whether it will lead to increase in their income levels or not, then we would have to look at some of the states which have done away with the APMC acts completely. Take for instance, states such as Bihar, Kerala, they have done away with the APMC regime completely. They have given the freedom to the farmers to sell their agriculture produce throughout India. So by carrying out to what extent the reforms introduced by these states have worked, we can get to know whether this particular act will work or not. Now, according to a study carried out by National Council for Applied Economic Research, based upon the Bihar's model, Now, Bihar government did away with the APMC Act in the year 2006. So right now we are standing in the year of 2020. So almost 20 years have passed. So according to this agency, it has highlighted that in spite of 20 years, the income levels of the farmers in Bihar has not increased proportionately. This is mainly on the account of fact that the markets as such are located far away from the villages. When the markets are located far away from the villages, in order to reduce the transportation cost, most of the farmers are selling the agriculture produce within the villages itself to the trader at a price which is much below the minimum support price. Apart from that, the Bihar government expected that more amount of private sector investment will come for setting up of the agriculture marketing. But sadly, in spite of 14 years, the private sector investment in the agriculture marketing has not improved. So overall, according to this particular study, the farmers' income level has not increased. So this clearly goes on to show that just by giving the freedom to the farmers to sell their agriculture produce anywhere within India, this freedom alone is not going to be sufficient enough. This has to be accompanied by other important reforms. Coming to the next act, that is the contract farming. So you can highlight a number of benefits with respect to contract farming. Benefits such as streamlines the agriculture supply chain, brings the farmers directly in contact with the food processing industries, eliminates all the middlemen and intermediaries. It enables the farmers to have the necessary inputs from the entities with whom the farmers enter into contractual agreement. It will lead to increase in the long-term investment in the Indian agriculture and so on. As far as challenges is concerned, one of the biggest challenges with respect to contract farming is that it is considered to be exclusionary, wherein the private sector entities may be reluctant to enter into a contract farming with the small and marginal farmers who own a small piece of agricultural land. And the small and marginal farmers, they constitute almost 83% of the farming community, and hence the contract farming may not be able to benefit a major chunk of the Indian farmers. Apart from that, other concerns with respect to contract farming is that it could possibly lead to the development of the monopoly market. See, when we say monopoly market, in the case of monopoly market, we have a single seller. In case of monopoly market, we do have a single buyer. So when we promote contract farming, it can so happen that a particular multinational company, such as say PepsiCo, it can emerge as a single buyer. So all the farmers would be required to sell their agriculture produce to a single buyer. So that single buyer would have a higher bargaining powers. So that single buyer may force the farmers to sell the agriculture produce at a price which is much below the minimum support price. Further, concerns have also been raised with respect to the adverse impact on the environment. This can be seen in the form of promotion of monoculture farming or higher utilization of fertilizers, water, seeds, power, and so on. Next, coming to the amendments to the Essential Commodities Act. Now, the government has said that the essential food commodities will not be under the purview of the Essential Commodities Act. Stock holding limits, if any, they would be imposed only under certain exceptional circumstances, such as say a 100% increase in the prices of agricultural commodities. Only then stock holding limits would be imposed under the Essential Commodities Act. So one benefit of such an amendment is that this will in turn incentivize the private sector entities to undertake bulk procurement of agriculture produce from the farmers. It will incentivize the private sector entities plus the food processing industries to invest more amount of money in terms of improving the cold chain infrastructure, the investment in godowns, and so on. So it will reduce the post-harvest losses which we normally encounter in the Indian agriculture. As far as challenges is concerned, see, even today, the Indian government has retained the ability to impose stock holding limits. Now, for example, the government has said that if there is 100% increase in the prices of some of the agricultural commodities, then the government can impose stock holding limits. So, according to some of the economists, this particular amendment to the Essential Commodities Act is actually a half-hearted measure. In fact, this year's economic survey, that is Economic Survey 2019-20, had strongly advocated in the favor of doing away with the Essential Commodities Act completely. So the recent amendment to the Essential Commodities Act, it is termed as a half-hearted measure. So by analyzing all the benefits and challenges with respect to these three farm acts, we can easily come to a conclusion that these three farm acts have indeed liberalized the agriculture marketing. It is indeed a 1991 movement for the Indian agriculture. But at the same time, these reform movements alone cannot become a game changer. In order to enable these three farm acts to become a game changer, it has to be accompanied by other important reforms. For example, we would have to bring the agriculture marketing under the concurrent list. This becomes quite important because if you look at the first act here, this act has been formulated by the Indian Parliament by invoking entry 33 in the concurrent list. Entry 33 in the concurrent list provides for the regulation of trade and commerce in some of the commodities, including the agricultural commodities. So the Parliament has passed this particular law by invoking entry 33. On the other hand, some of the states, they believe that agriculture as a subject, it is placed under the state list. Hence, they alone have a power to make law related to regulating of marketing produce. So there is right now a tussle between the center and the states as to who can make a law to regulate the marketing of agricultural produce. In fact, some of the states such as Punjab, Rajasthan, etc., they have come up with their own farm acts in order to nullify these reforms introduced by the central government. Hence, in order to avoid such kind of tussle between the center and the states, there is a need to bring the agriculture marketing under the concurrent list. So by doing so, we would be able to give a definite role to both center as well as states with respect to regulation of the marketing of the agricultural produce. In fact, this is the recommendation that has been given by both National Commission on Farmers headed by MS Swaminathan and the Committee on Doubling for Farmers' Income headed by Mr. Ashok Dalwai. Second is to increase the marketing density. Now, as I discussed before, as in case of Bihar, in spite of the fact that the freedom was given to the farmers to sell their agricultural produce anywhere throughout India, this did not lead to increase in the income levels of the farmers. This is because of the poor marketing density. So we would have to increase the marketing density. Next, some of the economists have also hinted that there is a need to make an amendment to these two acts wherein a provision has to be inserted. According to this particular provision, whatever price is paid to the farmers by the traders or the private sector entity, that price should always be greater than or equal to the minimum support price. By adding such a provision to these two acts, we would be able to check the exploitation of farmers in the hands of the private entities. Next is to strengthen the dispute resolution mechanism. See, both these two acts, they have provided for a dispute resolution mechanism to handle the disputes that may possibly arise between the farmers and the private sector entities. As per these two acts, the dispute resolution mechanism is in the form of a conciliation board which is required to be set up by the sub-divisional magistrate. So going forward, as we start implementing these two acts, the number of disputes, these number of disputes are obviously bound to increase, and accordingly, we need to strengthen the dispute resolution mechanism so that the cases which come up before this particular dispute resolution mechanism, they are cleared as early as possible. Next, we have given the freedom to the farmers to sell their agricultural produce in the trade area. The trade area here could be a cold chain infrastructure, it could be a godown, factory premises, etc. So all such trade areas need to be linked with the ENAM so that the farmer can have access to the market across India. So these are some of the reforms which have to be introduced along with these 3 farm acts so that this emerges as a game changer and revolutionize the present agricultural marketing. So this is how you'll be required to approach the answer to this particular question. Thank you, one and all.